Okay, let's start. Good morning to everyone in Houston, and good afternoon to those joining from Argentina. Thank you very much for being here. Before we begin, I would like to clarify that this webinar will be in English. However, you can enable the Spanish subtitles directly from the Zoom platform. I will repeat this in Spanish just in case. Antes de comenzar, me gustaría aclarar que este webinar va a ser en inglés. Sin embargo, todos tienen la posibilidad de activar subtítulos en español directamente desde la plataforma Zoom. My name is Francisco Sánchez Carelli, and I will be moderating today's session. I am member of the technical committee of the IAPG Houston, a role I hold on a voluntary basis. In addition, I work as service engineering manager for the process technologies and solution business line in SLB. Over the next 60 minutes, we will have the opportunity to hear the vision and the experience of two leaders in the geoscience field, Manuel Fantin, Executive Director of Synergies, and Lucas Santimoteo, Reservoir Manager Director at Synergies. Today's agenda is divided in two parts. First, Manuel and Lucas will share their perspective on the evolution of Vaca Muerta and their views about its future. Their presentation will help us understanding the key trends, opportunities, and the risk influencing the development of the play. Their presentation will last approximately 40 minutes, and then we will have a question and answer session. Participants can submit questions at any time using the Q&A feature in the Zoom app, preguntas y respuestas for the Spanish version. You will also see some Zoom pop-up surveys designed to make the session more interactive and to gather your feedback. I would like to highlight that the IAPG Houston is an independent, non-profit institution that shares the principles of our sister organization, IAPG in Argentina. Our mission is to promote the growth and the long-term sustainability of the energy industry, especially by sharing knowledge and supporting the next generation leaders through scholarships. As part of our technical activities, we regularly host webinars connecting the Houston and the Argentina communities. Today's webinar is the first one of this year. Okay, before we begin, I would like to promote briefly two initiatives currently underway in IAPG Houston. First, on Thursday, March 26th, as part of our CEO Series breakfast, we will host Horacio Marin, Chairman and CEO of YPF, the national oil company in Argentina. This event will take place at the Baldwin Hotel in downtown Houston, and the registration is still open. Finally, and before handing over to Manuel and Lucas, I would like to remind everyone about our scholarship program for Argentine professionals planning to enroll in graduate programs in the United States in fields related to the energy industry, such as petroleum engineering, geoscience, or chemical or mechanical engineering. In the chat session of this webinar, we are pasting the two links, one for registering to Marin's event, and another one with more information about the scholarship program. Okay, but now let's move to the important part. It is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Manuel Fantin is a geologist specialized in shale reservoir characterization who has worked on Vaca Muerta since the earliest stage of the play. And Lucas Santimoteo is a reservoir and production specialist focused on reservoir evaluation, production forecasting, and development strategy. They work and collaborate together on technical projects that integrate surface geology and production data to better understand the key drivers behind Vaca Muerta performance. That's all from my side. Thank you to all. And Manuel, Lucas, I am anxious to hear about your presentation.
Thank you, Francisco. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for joining us today. And I would like to especially thank the IAPG Houston for the invitation and for hosting this webinar. Today, we want to share a geological perspective of the Vaca Muerta play, one of the most important and conventional development outside North America. And we will talk about Vaca Muerta Frontiers and how subsurface insights can help understand the evolution of the play. This presentation is organized in three main sections. First, we briefly introduce Vaca Muerta and its geological setting. Then we discuss the sedimentary framework and some fluid distribution and structural and magmatism setting. And in the last part, we will talk about the Vaca Muerta evolution from the early times, exploration, then proof of concept, some phases that we identified during the play development. And at the end, we will talk about some key takeaways from this presentation. Well, let's start with a quick geographic reference. Where is Vaca Muerta? It's in the western Argentina. It's located in the Neuquén Basin, one of the most prolific basins of the Argentina. And in particular, we have the Neuquén Basin shape here, and the Vaca Muerta formation is this gray shape. I also would like to introduce these two localities, two main towns that are inside the Vaca Muerta play. Añelo, that is in the core hub of the play, and Rincón de los Sauces, that is toward the north. That is the other important city in the play. Now, what is Vaca Muerta? Vaca Muerta combines three key roles. The term Vaca Muerta often creates confusion because we use the same name for the stratigraphic unit, a south rock, and unconventional play. First, the first in time was the stratigraphic unit. This is a picture of Vaca Muerta in the outcrops on the western Neuquén Basin. These rocks are Upper Jurassic, Lower Cretaceous, marine, and composed of mainly black mudstone, marlstone, and limestone. That is the first definition of what is Vaca Muerta. But also, it's one of the main prolific south rock of the Neuquén Basin. It's characterized by the organic rich interval. It's up to 450 meters thick. And the third term is an unconventional shape play. This is the more common nowadays. We refer to all the conditions, the element that we identify as part of the petroleum system, the unconventional petroleum system. And we assume it's around 3,000 square kilometers. And nowadays, there are more than 250 and 500 horizontal wells producing oil, gas, or condensate. So apart from that, why Vaca Muerta became now one of the world-class shape plays? We are going to use this picture. This figure, it came from Chef Ottman and Kevin Bohak. They explained that the essential element of a conventional play, they identify 3 or 4 elements, and when the combination of the 4 is the sweet spot, the most prolific area. And we are going to see that Vaca Muerta has very good attributes in all of these elements. First, the storage capacity, where the hydrocarbon is stored, that's the porosity. We are seeing here a picture of MEB, microscopic electronic or SEM. Well, this is important because we can see here the two kinds of porosity. We have the organic matter pores, that is the red arrow here, and inorganic pores. The Vaca Muerta system pore system is complex. We can identify both. One of them is smaller, and the other is bigger. keep that in mind because we are going to mix this with the phases later. So we have a very good storage capacity. The second is the conductivity, the brittleness or stiffness, the capacity to open the rock and to maintain the rock open. We know that Vaca Muerta is very low clay content, less than 30% in average, and it is a very good brittle lithology. We're going to see the setting that explain that. And the third element is the reservoir energy, the drive for the reservoir. It came from the overpressure. Vaca Muerta, this is the raw data from the feed information. Most of the wells confirm the good overpressure, an average of 0.87 PCI per foot. That is a very good overpressure, and that's the key for the reservoir energy, the main driver for this. And the last element is the seal. You can see it's around the other elements. It's important to have an effective seal, and in the case of Vaca Muerta, the seal is mainly the formation itself. The upper layers act as a seal for the underlying intervals. Because of the formation has several 100-meter sticks, this creates a very robust sealing system that helps to maintain the pressure over the geological time. And keep in mind that one of the key attributes of Vaca Muerta is the thickness. And so we move in the introduction to this slide. We have here a picture from Minicini that compares at the same scale many unconventional shaped plays in North America. Here we have a map of these formations. All of these are salt rocks and are in the same scale, 90 meters or 300 feet. Here is the bar. And if you see that the first message here is the heterogeneity that the different shales it has. You can see the different phases, organic rich sandstone, organic rich limestones, sandstone, siltstones. All this is mixed together in some of these unconventional shale plays. And on the right, we have in this picture, Vaca Muerta. And the other important thing is where are the more popular landing zones for this place. You can see here that some places focus on carbonates, that is the light blue, or the others focus on organic rich mud, no? the brown. Vaca Muerta is in that case. Currently, we focus on the mudstones. But the other important message for this presentation is the heterogeneity of Vaca Muerta. This picture points out the Vaca Muerta in Añelo. As I mentioned before, Añelo is in the center of the plate. And now we are going to compare Vaca Muerta in Añelo with Vaca Muerta in Rincón, toward the north. The geology changed a lot. The thickness is more or less the same, but it changed the phases. And the other important thing is using this as an indicator of reservoir quality. The whole column of Vaca Muerta in Rincón de los Sauces area has very good TOC values, very low B-clay, and good porosities. Vaca Muerta has several 100 meters of continuous thickness with very good reservoir quality. That makes the play different to the others. It's more challenged from some decisions also. Now we change from the introduction to the setting the stage. We would like to emphasize some fundamental from the geology. I imagine that most of the audience that is geology, maybe, of course, they know all this, but I would like to put at the beginning some fundamental from the sedimentary ramp setting. This is a nice picture of the ramp. You can see here the shoreline and the distal part. We used to use the words distal and proximal to compare the rocks. Proximal is shallower, and it implies higher energy of the reservoir. And the opposite is the distal, that is deeper, the deeper the distance from the bottom, the sea level and the bottom, and it's lower energy. With that in mind, we use this red line to emphasize a surface, and a stratigraphic surface, which is essentially a time equivalent surface that can be traced across the positional setting. With all that in mind, we moved to the Vaca Muerta Quintuco conceptual model. I put the same red line here, and now the sketch. This implies different type of rocks. We can identify here different colors, and we name the Vaca Muerta phases to the distal phases, the distal phases of the system, the lower energy. And there is a second name that is very common for us, is the Quintuco formation, that are the shallower phases and are the proximal setting of this sedimentary ramp. Why that is important? Because the reservoir heterogeneity can be forecast. We can follow a sedimentary conceptual model to see the change. The difference in the reservoir are sketched here in these figures. You can see here different bed thickness, the relationship between mudstone and limestones, and the inorganic porosity and the pore size that increase towards the proximal setting, and is the opposite for the organic matter porosity, that it increases in pore size and the abundance towards the distal part of the ramp. Another interesting thing, we would like to emphasize that Vaca Muerta change is not the same. We know a lot from outcrops, from cores, and if you understand this, you can see that the change is in the reservoir in a ramp for the same age. It implies if you want to change from one setting to the other, over 10 of kilometers of distance. It's a basin scale. But I introduce this because another important thing, it's a basic, a fundamental from geology, is this scale. How can we imagine the reservoir changes in the vertical? We are going to animate the same sequence, the same Vaca Muerta Quintuco conceptual model at different times. The system change, the sea level change, and there is an evolution. When at the time 1, we can have in the position of this well, the more distal phases. In the time 2, there is a progradation, it change the sea level, there is less sea level depth, and the system progradates. It implies that at the same position we have more proximal phases. And you can imagine the time 3, it continues the progradation, and we have again more proximal phases, the same for the time 4 and 5. That implies that for a one well, of course, it depends on the position of the basin, we can have many differences in Vaca Muerta rocks and reservoir attributes. That is important for the geologist because we can imagine how it changed regionally and also in local ways. The Quintuco Vaca Muerta conceptual model, I will try to explain one of the key figures that we use to explain how it changed the play laterally. We have here a map of the Vaca Muerta play. We are going to see a cross-section from A to B that is named the transecta of Vaca Muerta. This is a transecta, it's a cross-section. We see here stratigraphic surface with different colors, and in the back, the colors represent the phases. I'm going to show you the difference between two of the sectors of the plate, the sector of Añelo and the sector of Rincón. This is important because the develop and the strategy and the uncertainties and many times the result of the wells depend on the position of the horizontal well, and that depends on the position in the basin. We have again two sketches pointed out the target zone, the high TOC, low peak clay, good porosity, for the position close to Añelo sector on the right, and on the left, we put here the sketch, the phases for the representative section for Rincón well. Here, the different shape colors represent again the different cycles and shallow and deeper Vaca Muerta. One of the key observation of this slide is you can imagine that why we have thicker Vaca Muerta target on the north of the transecta than in the center of the transecta. The Vaca Muerta, the organic bricks, is in this green color. And it's because you have many of the sequence that are stacking in this position. You have the sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in distal phases. That's why you have almost 350 meters thick of target. On the other hand, when you are in Añelo, you have just the unit 1 and unit 2, the lower sequence of Vaca Muerta, that are in Vaca Muerta phases. That's why you have less alternatives to land the wells, or you have more alternatives if you consider shallower phases, not only the distal phases. With that in mind, we are going to talk later about how was the evolution of the play, where are the main targets for landing, and why it changed laterally, and why we can benchmark in different ways all the result of the wells. So moving to another key attribute, that is the fluid type. Again, it's very simple, the fluid distribution in Vaca Muerta. We have a very good map that could help us to forecast what will be the fluid in the basin. On the left, we have a cross-section from west to east. It came from Fabián Domínguez from YPF. And this is the structure of the base of Vaca Muerta. And on the right, we have the same map than before, the position of the cross-section, and the different thermal maturity windows. The good, but that is important for Vaca Muerta, it's a good thing. You can choose what kind of fluid produce if you select the position of the well. Sometimes it's more economic to drill wells in the gas window, and you have a lot of accretion in the dry gas. Some cases it's the opposite, it's better the oil. You can move inside the play from one thermal maturity to another. And we are going to see that there was also an evolution and what were the targets in terms of thermal maturity. We will see later, but like in a spoiler, when we start the exploration of Vaca Muerta, the focus was only the dry gas window and the gas condensate wet gas window, because at that time the paradigm was that the shale gas was economic. Then it changed to light oil, and we are going to see to another window. So with that in mind, one of the last slides is setting the stage and two others attributes to understand the lateral change in the play. One is the structure, and the other is the magmatism. On the structure, we we put all the faults and faults like this one. We have a very good map of the base of Vaca Muerta that shows the different kind of faults, normal, strike slip, and reverse, and it changes laterally, and you have different structural settings across the whole play. And the other key, but this is important for some part of the play, is the magmatic intrusion, magmatic centers. Some of them are volcanoes, like this one. Some of them are intrusive. There is no volcano on surface. That has a good, high impact on the development. There are mechanical barriers or mechanical discontinuities, and this is important to take into consideration for the development. In our case, we are going to see later the position of all the horizontal wells, and at the moment, most of the wells avoid the more complex areas from the faults and fault and the magmatic intrusions. Now we'll continue the evolution of Vaca Muerta. Lucas.
Thank you very much, Manu, for the great geological framework that you gave us on the Vaca Muerta play. Now we are going to talk a little bit more on the evolution of Vaca Muerta from the early times, what we call the early times, all the way to the emerging frontiers. We left here a well count plot just to show how this evolved in one of the main reasons that help understand these evolving phases on Vaca Muerta. That is the split between vertical wells and horizontal wells. So going into the early times, that is what we call the before the shale revolution. The good thing on Vaca Muerta is that we have a lot of penetration from wells in the entire play. So these wells from 1970 all the way to 2010 gave us an idea on what this formation was, the different fluid that the formation was giving us. And actually, while drilling these wells, we, or the operators at that point, realized that this section on the wells were giving them kicks or shows. So in some cases they tested, but they realized that they weren't economic. Actually, this is an ultra low permeability rock. So when you test this, you're gonna have just the nearby production and that's it. But in a presentation from Lanús in 2020, he mentioned a Legarreta point that is very good one to mention here, that is to encourage testing this new play just because of the important volume accumulated in Vaca Muerta. So moving forward into the proof of concept phase is what we call the early development with verticals. So the wells that we shown before, they were penetration within Vaca Muerta. And what we are showing here is, first of all, the first well drilled in Loma La Lata, this first well, that was, as Manu mentioned before, on the frontiers at that moment of Vaca Muerta. This is, of course, the present-day fluid map, but the frontier at that point was over here. So the first well targeting Vaca Muerta, drilled and completed in Vaca Muerta, was over here in Loma La Lata. This was the first exploratory vertical well drilled in Loma Campana, in Vaca Muerta, that pushed for the campaign on all these exploratory wells within the Vaca Muerta play, showing that this play was capable to flow with the hydraulic fracture technology. At that point, these vertical wells prove that the new frontier of Vaca Muerta was pushed from what we called before, the one that Manuel mentioned over here, all the way to this new one up to what we call the peak oil, leaving early oil outside of this frontier. At that point, the wells were completely vertically, as we mentioned before, and they were, as Vaca Muerta has a large thickness, they were testing multiple targets within these vertical completions. They realized with flow tests that there were different targets within Vaca Muerta that were having different performance. So moving to the following phase, what we call the growing phase, where we fully went to horizontal wells, we shift from the vertical to horizontal wells, we started to drill horizontal wells targeting what we call what Manuel mentioned before, the distal formation of facies for Vaca Muerta. And these were the lower targets in Vaca Muerta. And they concentrated all the activity, as you are seeing on the right-hand side plot, close to Añelo, where the first well, as you recall, the first well was drilled almost here. Moving to the expansion phase, the development with these horizontal wells, the companies, the operator were moving the target for full development apart from the main one that was located over here, Añelo, moving towards the north and pushing the limits on what we call the frontier from Vaca Muerta. And as you recall from Manuel's presentation, this was targeting more proximal phases of Vaca Muerta. As he shown in the geological framework, as we move to different areas, we are having different landing targets. So you can see over there which were all the landings in the different areas where the development project were moving towards. So one of the things that we haven't mentioned is we have been discussing the evolution on the geological part, right? And of course, this evolution was, we were capable to do it, as you recall, from the early time without frac technology all the way to horizontals. And the things that had been changing, I just put these two plots, the lateral length in meter per well from the proof of concept, less than 1,000 meters, all the way to we drill, or in Vaca Muerta, they were targeting, or there were wells with more than 5,000 meter lateral length. But as you can see, there is a progression. And actually with this box chart, we're able to see all the testing that have been done during these years. And the other one that I left over here was the proppant concentration. As you can see here, this is evolving toward longer lateral. And in this case, what I'm trying to show here is that there is a test on the boundaries and then moving towards the most appropriate one for Vaca Muerta. But as we have the lateral length, we have proppant intensity, frac stages, fluid intensity, and all that stuff. I just left these two to show you how this evolution went from the well design, not only from the geological aerial distribution and vertical distribution, but also within the design of the well. This slide, what I want to mention here is, again, showing the growing phase, how we evolve over here, and when we went into the expansion, how we are increasing production in both phases, in oil and gas as well. And in this plot over here, you are able to see the production per fluid window. So at the very beginning, we were having, at the very, very beginning, the gas window with the vertical, but as we are not showing the vertical here, we are showing the horizontal. We went into the more oil area, and you can see that we are testing, this is the latest one, what we call the early oil, as we mentioned before in the map, moving the frontiers towards the east. So here we are moving to the emerging frontiers. As you can see over here, most of the operators are moving towards all the places within the fluid maturity window. In Vaca Muerta, moving towards the early oil and as well towards the Andes, where we are having much more complexity from the structural perspective. And we are moving towards the south and more shallower areas to try to test boundaries within Vaca Muerta. And also moving towards the west, we are testing this more complex area, and the next one will be the magmatism frontiers, as Manu mentioned before. We talk about aerial expansion of the frontiers. We talk about vertical expansion of the frontiers. We talk about expanding the well-designed frontiers. And actually, the other frontier or the other bottleneck that we've been seeing in Vaca Muerta was the export facilities. I put this plot over here. This is a Rystad plot or Rystad press release that they delivered in 2023. And actually what we've done over here is, this was the projection for Vaca Muerta production, and what we've done over here is to show how the real production is ramping up, and that is mainly because of having better performance in both from the well perspective as well as the drilling performance, and actually the increase in export capacity still remain the same, and actually it is already shown that it was performed as promised. So there is still room for more Vaca Muerta to come. So I was running pretty fast just because we want to leave some room for Q&As, and I think both of us cover all the takeaway that we mentioned over here. So again, thank you very much for the IAPG in Houston to give us the opportunity to show you the geological framework of Vaca Muerta play. It was a great presentation from Manu, and we wanted to show the evolution and where we are now within the Vaca Muerta full field development from every perspective. I don't know if you want to add anything, Manu, or we just move forward to the Q&As.
No, again, emphasize the acknowledge to all the colleagues that work with us in the last 10 to 15 years in many projects, collaborative, many different technical workshops that I would like to thank for all them. And I think we have time for questions. No, Francisco?
Okay. Before going to the question, thank you very much, Manuel and Lucas, for your technical and strategic perspective. For me, that coming from facilities, this is everything is new, so I am very, very happy to absorb your knowledge in terms of geoscience. Okay, now we are going to move some questions. Lucas, Manuel, please feel free to answer any of you. The first one, there are a lot of questions. To be honest, I don't think we will be able to answer all of them, but surely we can reply after the session, the ones that are pending. First one, the question is, what is the source rock in Vaca Muerta, and if it's possible to display or explain an electric log with the entire geological sequence in Vaca Muerta or in the basin?
Thank you. I will to one of the slides where we saw an electrical body interpretation, the petrophysics of one well, but the petrophysics came from the logs. Excuse me. Okay, this one. But the only here electrical log is the gamma ray, but all the other petrophysical interpretation came from the sonic, the density, and the magnetic resonance for the porosity and also for the TOC. The petrophysicists here work with the NMR, the magnetic resonance. And the question was if we can see the South Rock. All this is the South Rock. Look, the cutoff here is 2%, the light gray, and 4%, the dark gray. So we have around 350 meters or maybe less here of continuous thickness with high TOC. That's what we named the South Rock. And in the presentation later, we saw that these were many sequences. In this case, we have 5 sequences or units stacked in the same position. I don't know, Miguel, if that was exactly your question, but let us know if you want additional praise.
Okay. Thank you, Manuel. One next question. Maybe it's directed to you, Manuel. Manuel, show multiple landing zones in Vaca Muerta, especially near Añelo. Do you see pressure communication between individual landing zones and a single horizontal well capable of draining multiple zones, or do you view them as an independent flow units?
That's a really interesting question. So, we can discuss a lot about this topic. This is one of the key topics at the moment, the interference and parent-child also. Let me see if we can talk about this with the picture. The main 2 targets here are the lower units, the more distal phases of the unit 1. And the second main target is, again, distal phases of the lower part of the unit 2. Here, there are many studies, the subsurface team from many operators work and publish information that interprets that there is no communication in this part of the basin between the 2 landing zones. You can drill one well here and one well there. So the pressure, if there is no pressure communication, at least in most of the wells, that's the assumption. You can drill 2 landing zones without a lot of meters in the middle. But that is in Añelo. Maybe that's an important question to compare what happened in Añelo and what happened in another part of the basin. In more to the north, laterally it changed, and there is no thick potential barrier here. And there is not clear there is a barrier between the 2 landings. And in that case, it could be more interaction between the 2 landing zones. So in one case, you will have independent flow units. That's the assumption, and the data, the geochemical data show that, and the pressure data also. But in some part of the basin, it's not so clear, and we assume that maybe there's not are not independent.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. We have another question. is in USA, shale plays like Permian, parent-child well interference has become a major challenge as development density increase. In Vaca Muerta, are operators observing similar degradation in child well performance?
So thank you for the question. I think there is a degradation. They have been seeing degradation. I wouldn't say that is similar as in Vaca Muerta. First of all, I think that there is not as dense development as in Vaca Muerta, as in Permian, compared to Vaca Muerta. That might be one of the reasons. The other one might be the completion design, Vaca Muerta geological properties. But yes, we are seeing some degradation in the child wells compared with the parent. But again, I wouldn't say that is similar degradation as in Permian. That would be a more deeper study that we haven't done yet, at least on my side. I don't know if anybody else in any other consultant company or operator has something different. I don't know, Manu, if you heard from something different than that.
No, I agree with that.
Okay, thank you, Lucas. Let's move to a new one. The question is have you mapped boundaries of each productive phases of the formation?
That's a good question also. Yes, well, not me. Many geologists and also seismic interpreter has mapped these reflectors. These are horizons from seismic, and there are really very good maps of the shape of the system. It's very easy to identify in the seismic this shape, the clinoform, and there are maps the whole basin, or at least in most of the play, with the points where it changes the depth of this clinoform. So the answer is yes. It was out of the scope of this presentation, but there are many maps with all the boundaries. It changed to the north. If you want, later we can share any of that maps.
Thank you, Manuel. Next one. The question is, are there any U-shaped well in Vaca Muerta?
No, I'm not sure. I didn't listen about that, but the development changed very quick. Maybe now there is some new U-shape. I don't know. Lucas, do you know something about that?
I think there is not. There have been a lot of discussion about that, but I'm not a DNC specialist, so I'm sorry that I'm not capable to say it with real knowledge. But from what I heard, there is no U-shape well in Vaca Muerta.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move to the next question. Is Vaca Muerta overpressure over the entire basin? Does the pressure gradient change in different parts of the basin?
That's a good question. I will go to that slide to show you the raw data. This is data published, this one, from many of the vertical wells, and some horizontal also, with the DFID, the pore pressure estimating point. These are in the whole basin, or at least in the whole play. And you can see there are slightly difference, but in average, it's overpressure. This is a normal trend, and this is the trend for Vaca Muerta. At the moment, we assume that it's all the play overpressure, but it will change locally. So the answer is for the play at the moment, yes. And for the basin, it's not confirmed. We need more data.
Thank you, Manuel. we have another question is if you can share again the early test of Vaca Muerta in all DST test.
Okay, sure. This is a really nice slide. It came from Ivan Lanuse. Ivan is one of the geologists that started with the analysis and evaluation of Vaca Muerta many years ago. And most of these wells were drilled by YPF in the early times. And the question is, I don't know what is the question exactly, but there are many wells. They test the fluid windows before the shale revolution. A part of the oil test, the open hole DCT, there were two wells. This start represent two wells that were producing from Vaca Muerta, as I mentioned, in the 80s or the 90s. And in this particular well, it's very good, right? I don't know what was exactly the
Oh
question.
no, the
So I
question,
think
Manuel, was to share this slide again.
DST test, and I think it was on the previous plot where we you show the overpressure. I think that question goes towards that plot.
Okay.
If not, Byron can ask it again.
Okay, we go to the next question. The question is, what is the source of the magmatic outline and how accurate it is?
That's again a good question. We put here just the outline here is the outcrop of basalt, the basalt coverture. We have a big volcano here and an old volcano around here. It's very clear that. On the other hand, we have here magmatic centers in red. We know that there is a magmatic center there. And we know that in the subsurface, there are seals and dikes. And in some cases, we have very good precision of the position of that seals because we have 3D seismic and it has amplitude anomaly. But in another cases, there is no amplitude anomaly or there is no 3D seismic. So it's not so easy to map the subsurface. So it depends. For the, as I mentioned, the volcano is easy, not for the subsurface in some cases.
Okay, we will move to the last question. I mean, there is a lot of questions that we will not have time to answer. I am trying to respect the chronological order that the questions were sent to the platform. Apologize for the people whose answers I could not say, but we will take the time to reply and send to you after the presentation. So last question is if there is any specific reason why wells are drilled in the north-south direction?
Yes, that's for the tectonic setting of this basin is very well known. We are close to the Andes. The Andes is around here in this map, the Andean chain. And so the main and the sigma 1, the horizontal stress is west-east. And that's why all the wells are drilled, or not all, but 95% of the wells are drilled south to north or north to south. There are anomalies, local anomalies. Let me show you. In this part of the basin, if you see, you can see that it's not exactly north to south, but it's not so inclined. And the other answer of that is we didn't put here the border, the boundaries of the concessions. Most of the concessions are not north-south, so it's easier to start the strategy for development if we use north-south direction orientation for the wells. So there is a technical answer and a practical answer.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. Once again, apologize for the people. We have more than 15 questions that we we cannot answer due to lack of time, but we will do it after the presentation. Manuel, Lucas, on behalf of the IAPG Houston, I want to thank both of you for sharing your time and your knowledge. This has been a real great conversation about a topic that is becoming more and more important. And for me, that I'm coming from the facilities world, is everything is new. So thank you for sharing your knowledge. For the people joining, also from Argentina and from Houston, thank you for being here. This was the first webinar of the year. Thank you for all the audience, and also thanks for the ones who submit the questions, and apologize for the ones we could not answer. Stay connected. Follow us in LinkedIn, because there are much more IAPG Houston activities and events coming from the rest of the year. Lucas, Manuel, if you want to make a final statement.
No, maybe it's just about the questions. I didn't read all the questions. If you have any question in particular, you want to send an email here, this is our main. Lucas and I received this, or the other people who work with us. And then again, thank you everyone for joining us in the webinar, and also Francisco and Lucas that was behind the camera, and Ernesto Fonseca also for the invitation. And well, we'll keep in touch for future contact.
Yeah, me too. I want to extend the thanks to the IAPG Houston team, as well as all the members, the colleagues that got into this talk to take their time to hear us, and all the colleagues that help us to set the stages to where we are, right? This is a work in progress. Everything is evolving. And in this evolution, there are a lot of colleagues that are making a huge impact. And I want to thank all of them that share their knowledge with us to make this possible.
Okay. Once again, Lucas, Manuel, on behalf of the IAPG Houston, thank you very much. And you and all the audience, please have an excellent rest of your day. Thank you very much for joining this webinar.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.